Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be covering possibly the biggest Battlefield 6 update to date. We have so much to cover in this video, so let's get right into it. If you want to keep up to date with Battlefield 6, this is the channel for you. Be sure to hit the sub button, hit the like button, and check out my second channel where I talk about my hobby, which is fragrances. That will be linked in the pinned comment and the description. I'm uploading regularly on that channel now. And if you didn't know, all of my YouTube content is now also being posted on Spotify. That link will also be in the description. So when it comes to this update, first things first, if you're confused, no, this update is not out as of today. It will be dropping on May 12th, which is the release of the first part of Season 3. I'm going to separate this video into two sections. The first part, I'll be talking about the brand new content, so anything map, weapon, attachment related. And the second part, I'll be covering the full patch notes. There will be timestamps in the description. Overall, I have to give this update a 7 out of 10 in my opinion. There are way more positive things than negative things. I think the Season 3 update marks the start of DICE slowly chipping away at the major issues within Battlefield 6, and that is super important and great to see. However, it's still going to take DICE a lot of work to get Battlefield 6 to really where it should be, but overall, this update is definitely a big step in the right direction. The first thing I want to cover is the roadmap. As you can see, May 12th is the release of Season 3. The first thing I want to point out is actually the content cadence or the release cycle of all three parts of Season 3. The first part comes out on May 12th, the second part comes out on June 9th, and the third part comes out on June 30th. They are speeding up how often we receive content in this season. Here is Season 2's roadmap, for example. As you can see, Season 2 was spread out over a period of 3 months, with its content releasing on February 17th, March 17th, and April 14th. So it looks as though that Season 3 is going to be spread out over a period of roughly a month and a half, and I can only hope they keep this up with Season 4, Season 5, and however many seasons Battlefield 6 receives in the future, because the amount of content and how fast DICE delivers it does matter. The more content you deliver more quickly, the better, because you keep interest up and the game isn't as stale. If DICE can manage to keep this content cadence, I think this would be a vast improvement to the Battlefield franchise and its live service. Summarizing the content we'll be getting in Season 3, in the first part of Season 3, we'll be getting Galmud Railway, Ranked Battle Royale in quads only. I don't believe they're adding solo. 3 new weapons and 3 new attachments, which I will cover after I cover all the content. In the second part of Season 3, we'll be getting the remake of Grand Bazaar, the new game mode Obliteration, a limited time mode called Explosive Charge, a new submachine gun in the PP-19, a new gadget in the handheld jammer, and 2 brand new attachments. And finally, in the third part of Season 3, we'll be getting no new maps, so that's very important to point out. We'll just be getting a new mode called Tactical Obliteration, a new Casual Battle Royale mode, a brand new limited time mode called Wet Work, a new melee weapon, which is an EOD bot arm, and 2 brand new attachments. Unfortunately, the stuff that releases on June 30th really doesn't look that great, so I certainly hope Season 4 is going to be right around the corner whenever Season 3 ends. Giving you guys a little bit more information on the new weapons and gadgets and attachments that are going to be coming in Season 3, the new weapons we'll be getting are the M16A4, RPK-74M, L115 sniper rifle, and the PP-19 SMG. These weapons were confirmed earlier in the Season 3 trailer. The gadget we'll be getting is the handheld jammer for recon. DICE says this handheld jammer is a recon gadget that disrupts nearby smart and electronic devices for a short period of time. Once activated, it can either be thrown or placed in an area to provide localized malfunctions or carried around to turn a recon soldier into a mobile nuisance. Now some more details on the attachments that are being added in Season 3. One of them is called the Speed Holster, and this attachment will improve weapon draw speed, especially on sidearms, which this attachment will be available for. The second attachment we'll be getting is the Aftermarket Buffer, and DICE says the Aftermarket Buffer attachment helps with weapon recoil rather than reducing horizontal or vertical effects. It allows your in-game soldier to fight the visual flinching and other effects. You may not realize how much natural compensation happens after firing a shot, but after using an Aftermarket Buffer, you will literally see its effects in action. This sounds to me like it combats visual recoil and other weird screen effects. The last attachment they're adding in the first part of Season 3 is Burst Mode. They go on to say, most notably on the new M16A4, but also available on other weapons such as several submachine guns, Burst Mode removes the full auto functionality of a weapon in favor of burst fire. This is immensely helpful for landing precise shots at longer distances, which can be a force to be reckoned with on larger maps. Keep in mind, though, that the attachment cost of this modification varies depending on how much it improves each weapon, so prepare to make some sacrifices if you choose this attachment. Overall, I don't really see why you would turn a submachine gun into a burst fire weapon. It just really doesn't seem that useful. I don't think this is that great of an attachment. Unless it has some hidden effects where maybe it improves weapon rate of fire on some particular weapons. The next two attachments are being added in the second part of Season 3. The first one is Double-Aught Buckshot. This is a larger pellet size but lower pellet count version of buckshot that should extend the effective range of a shotgun. And the second attachment is called a Cryogenic Barrel, and DICE has this to say, quote, when state-of-the-art cryogenic technology meets a hard steel barrel, it creates a temperature barrier that helps a weapon better withstand standard operating friction and combustion. In other words, cryogenic barrels are tempered for better accuracy over sustained fire without being heavier than the factory standard version, which grants soldiers faster ADS time compared to using a heavier barrel. This basically sounds like it's going to be a 15-point version of the basic barrel that has the accuracy benefit of a heavy barrel, but it doesn't have the ADS time penalty that would typically be associated with using a heavy barrel or a heavy extended barrel. It also sounds like to me that this barrel is not going to affect muzzle velocity in either direction. It's not going to make it worse. It's not going to make it better. I just think this barrel is going to allow you to be more accurate during sustained fire while not nerfing your ADS time. And finally, the last two attachments they're adding in the last part of Season 3 are the compensator. They say the compensator is slotting in with other muzzle attachments. The compensator is similar to the flash compensator attachment from Season 2, albeit without its flash hiding feature. This really doesn't sound very good. I think flash hiders and suppressors are still going to be king for sure. And the final attachment they're adding is an interesting one. It's subsonic ammunition. They say that stay under the radar with a new ammunition type. Traveling just below the speed of sound, subsonic ammo is noticeably softer when fired, which reduces spot visibility in audible cues that enemies typically pick up on at longer ranges. I have a feeling there's going to be some pretty interesting synergies with using subsonic ammo and a suppressor, like we saw in Battlefield 2042 on particular weapons. The rest of the content for Season 3 is ranked Battle Royale quads and new game modes, as well as limited time game modes. So that's all the new content for Season 3. Now we're going to be getting into the second part of the video where we talk about the absolutely massive patch notes. Get something to snack on because this is going to take a long time to go through. First, I'm going to go through DICE's summary of each section where they tell us what they were trying to do with these changes, and then I'm going to dive into the specific changes themselves and pick out some interesting ones that aren't listed within the initial summaries. Friendly reminder to subscribe to the channel if you've found this informative so far, and let's get right into the first section. So, for the core gameplay, netcode, combat feedback improvements, and general player changelog, they said that pinging is now faster and more consistent, hit reactions and damage indicators are clearer, drag and revive has been further polished, and multiple netcode fixes improved readability during combat without interfering with gunfight outcomes. Some interesting things to look at in the player section of the changelog directly under this. The first one states, added a slight delay before entering ADS locomotion from a standstill to allow small position adjustments without affecting the reticle. This is really weird. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because it has ADS and delay in the same sentence. I don't think they're going to be nerfing ADS times across the board. They absolutely would have listed that specifically, so maybe this change matters and maybe it doesn't. Another thing they listed is they increased the critical assist window from 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds. I'm wondering if this means they finally fixed assist count as kill not working? Hopefully it does. An interesting patch note is they stated they solved an exploit that allowed players to move faster while dragging and reviving another player. This was known as revive juggling. You could drag people a great distance if you understood that you could basically force pull someone towards you if they were in the down state and you were trying to revive them. You essentially had to move, jump, revive, move, jump, revive, and you could drag them a very great amount of distance. So it looks like they fixed that. Another interesting change is they updated the engineer field specialization passive skills. They have reduced the devastating impact repair reduction from -50% to -25%. They've also reduced the overheat control vehicle weapon effect from minus 50% to minus 10%, and they replaced the vehicle regeneration passive skill with a new mine sweeping skill. When learned, the mine sweeping passive skill will highlight mines in a 30-meter area around the player. Onto the netcode specific adjustments. Netcode is a topic of conversation that has been very, very popular ever since the release of Battlefield 6. There seem to be a lot of random corrections here having to deal with animation syncing and making sure everyone looks the same on everyone else's screen. An interesting change they list is they corrected an issue where first-person hit reactions could play when incoming bullets missed the player and passed behind them. They also corrected an issue where projectiles could fire from the wrong position height during stance transitions under poor network conditions, causing bullet hits to be rejected by the server, and they corrected an issue where some UI elements like the inventory would not immediately be hidden when killed. On top of this, they made sure incoming damage UI indicators now animate and scale based on the amount of damage being taken, improving the clarity of rapid consecutive hits and making it easier to distinguish between low and high damage. And the last change in the netcode section is another really interesting one. They say, quote, taking damage while aiming down sights now triggers hit reactions that move the weapon opposite to the direction of impact, improving damage feedback without interfering with the outcome of gunfights. Now onto the vehicle section. This is by far the biggest focus of this entire patch. There are so many tiny little details to go through here. So the summary of this, according to DICE, is vehicles receive a major overhaul. Land and air vehicles have gone through a broad balance and handling pass, with tracked vehicle mobility reworked, tank damage and regeneration systems updated, repair behavior rebalanced, and a wide set of vehicle weapons retuned to make survivability, counterplay, and damage output more predictable. And then the patch goes ahead and gives us way more details. So first they detail what they did to the angle and zone damage rework specifically. They say the angle damage model on tanks is being simplified to improve the ability to predict the amount of incoming damage and gauge your own survivability. Additionally, the numbers have been tuned to reduce the most extreme peaks of damage, especially when firing at the rear of tanks. This will truncate the possible time to die within a smaller range. And then they just go ahead and give us some specific numbers. So damage to turrets will always deal 75% max damage. Damage to the body of a tank deals at least 100% damage based on the angle. Hits at a favorable angle from the side of a tank will deal 150% damage, and hits at a favorable angle from the rear of the tank will deal 200% damage. What they mean by favorable angle is basically if you hit it straight on, like a nice, clean, flat hit. They end this section off by saying, weapons no longer deal different damage values to IFVs, MBTs, APT, and AA vehicles. Instead, MBT health, main battle tank, has been increased to 1200, and APT health has been reduced to 800. Overall, I enjoy the sound of these changes. It just sounds to me like they're trying to add some more consistency and predictability into vehicle gameplay. The next section has to deal with reworking regeneration brackets. They say the healthy portion of armored vehicles will no longer be split into brackets. The critical health bracket, which previously prevented regeneration entirely, will instead slow regeneration substantially. The regeneration delay has been increased from 6 seconds all the way up to 12 seconds. Regeneration now continues to full health of the vehicle instead of only to the next health bracket. Regeneration rate increased from roughly 5% per second to 10% per second, and while in critical health, regeneration is now slowed by 80% instead of being fully disabled. I don't believe they mention it in this specific patch notes, but in the community update themselves, they did mention repair tools and just engineers repairing vehicles in general also received some major changes. So the regeneration changes combined with the repair tool interactions with vehicles, it's going to make the vehicle health economy a lot more interesting, and I'm definitely going to be playing in vehicles quite a bit when Season 3 comes out, just to feel these changes out. The next section they detail have to do with the handling changes they made to the vehicles. They stated that they updated all tracked vehicles with a new transmission and steering system, delivering smoother and more responsive acceleration, tighter and more consistent turning at all speeds, a smoother steering feel, and more effective handbrake turns. This is so great to hear. My biggest personal problem is just the way the vehicles felt, man. They did not feel good to operate. But DICE goes on to say in this section that tank-type vehicles are no longer going to be immobilized by taking high damage, but anti-tank mines will still completely immobilize tanks. They also say that the ground vehicle boost bar is no longer emptied when interrupting boost, and boost can be reapplied even when the bar is recharging, except when it has been fully emptied. That change is simply going to make vehicle boosting feel way more natural, and after this update, I think it'll function basically how it always should have functioned. DICE goes on to say that they have increased turret speeds for the MBT and IFV by a, quote, modest amount. I wish they would give us some percentages when it comes to turret speed. I want to know how much faster they made the turrets. And finally, they say that aiming in first person and zoomed views in the tanks have been tuned to be faster and more responsive. The next section has to do with the vehicle weapons and the changes DICE made to them. If I went over every single specific change in this section, this video would be 2.5 hours long. So in an attempt to summarize, for most vehicle weapons, they adjusted their effectiveness via helicopters, jets, and tanks. They have adjusted the damage in a very specific way for each weapon for each vehicle. If you want to read the specific changes they made to some of the weapons, I will of course leave the patch notes linked in the description. You scroll down until you see the vehicle weapons section, and then you can see all of these specific changes. In terms of other changes they made sure that lock-on weapons now always do consistent damage, ignoring zones and angles. Zone and angle damage is reserved for weapons which are manually aimed by players, like the RPG. This will just basically increase gameplay predictability and consistency, which is very important. They also made sure that most land vehicle explosive weapons now have a minimum explosive damage of 20%. This doesn't increase lethal or total radius of the weapon, but it does increase damage at the edges of explosive radiuses to make hits to kill way more consistent. They go on to say that the aim-guided missile now deals 207 to 550 damage against tanks, 1,000 against helicopters, and 1,000 against jets, and air-to-ground missiles now deal 450 damage against tanks, 975 damage against helicopters, and 1,000 against jets. A little bit farther down the patch notes, you will see a balance pass to the guided shell available on the Leo A4 and the M1A2. The first change they made is the aim-guided shell beam riding offset has been increased from 75 to 100 meters, reducing the rate of turning response. They also made sure the engine time to live reduced from 1.25 to 1 second. The aim-guided shell now experiences drag after the engine cutoff, and the time to live has been decreased from 6 to 4 seconds, as well as a reduction to the turning rate from 12.5 to 6 degrees per second. Now some changes to the Bradley and IFV weapons in general. They have increased all IFV cannon reload times from 2.4 to 2.75 seconds. They have decreased the IFV HE round rate of fire from 200 to 180 RPM. They have increased the drag of the IFV HE rounds. They have decreased the APDS round magazine capacity from 12 to 10, and they've also reduced its rate of fire from 200 RPM all the way down to 120 RPM, so a very significant nerf there. Interestingly, they buffed the IFV canister round significantly by increasing its magazine capacity from 12 to 16, and its rate of fire from 200 all the way up to 240 RPM. Now some very interesting changes having to do with RWS gunner and coaxial weapons. This is very impactful for team play in vehicles. So the first thing they did is they made the coaxial light machine gun a 6 bullet to kill instead of a 5 bullet to kill by reducing its damage from 21 all the way down to 19. They have also reduced the muzzle velocity of the RWS and coaxial LMG from 850 to 670 meters per second. They extended the fall-off start distance for the RWS and coaxial LMG from 20 to 25 meters. They've shortened the fall-off end distance for this LMG from 75 to 60 meters. Reduced the minimum damage 75 plus meters out from 30 to 24, and they have also reduced the muzzle velocity of the coaxial heavy machine gun as well from 890 meters per second to 760. A really big change is the fact that they have reduced the maximum spread and spread gain per shot of the RWS and coaxial HMGs, on top of reducing the spread recovery rate of these LMGs and HMGs as well. So Overall, this is just going to make the gunner seat of the tank less of a nuisance to deal with and a little bit less accurate. When it comes to air vehicles, these also have received some weapon changes. Helicopter weapons saw some radius reductions pretty much across the board for all sorts of ammo types. Smart rockets, light rockets, heavy rockets all saw an effective area of effect reduced. And for the attack helicopter tow missile, that saw its maximum speed increased from 90 to 120 meters per second. And finally, one of the most interesting changes is the fact that they have removed projectile velocity inheritance from the transport helicopter side gunner seats. This removes the need to lag shots when firing from a fast-moving helicopter. This is basically going to make shots from a transport helicopter gunner seat way easier to hit, and it will feel more natural and actually more similar to how previous Battlefield titles functioned. Moving on to the vehicle equipment changes, I told you guys they made a ton of different vehicle changes in this update. It is truly a massive set of patch notes. The first thing they did is they actually completely removed the reinforced plating passive from the game, and they have replaced it with something called contingency systems. This new passive no longer increases the damage resistance of the vehicle, it no longer increases the weight or reduces the speed of any vehicle it's equipped on, and when at low health, it accelerates the cooldown of countermeasure equipment. Next up, they made a number of interesting changes to targeting jammer passives. First of all, targeting jammers for the IFV and mobile AA have had their locking resistance increased from 30% to 40%. It no longer deactivates when firing. It now deactivates when laser painted. It also deactivates when using a lock-on weapon. And the mobile AA and IFV deactivation time has been increased from 4.5 all the way up to 10 seconds. Next up, they reworked counterfire radar partially. They say that it now passively provides short duration spotting upon receiving damage. This short spot is not shared with teammates. It can be manually activated in order to extend the duration of currently spotted targets and share the spotting information with your teammates. And finally, when activated, spotted vehicles are also laser designated for the duration. Under this, they made some very controversial changes to thermal smoke, in my opinion. Actually, maybe the biggest weird thing they did in this entire patch. They have increased active duration by 3 seconds, so it now matches the visual effect duration. That's fine. It now also blocks the PTKM 1R acoustic sensor AV mine from detecting the vehicle when active. They've reduced the cooldown of the smoke screen from 20 to 16 seconds. But here are the crazy things. The smoke will now deal a moderate amount of damage to nearby enemy infantry who remain within the cloud. This damage will also destroy C4. And if that wasn't crazy enough, while remaining inside of your thermal smoke cloud, all hits will be registered as minimum damage hits, meaning 75% maximum damage. So vehicle thermal smoke is essentially a fucking force field that reduces projectile damage by 25% on top of damaging infantry that are inside of it and detonating or destroying C4. Holy shit. I don't really know about that one, guys. Maybe it sounds worse on paper than it will be in game, but adding a literal force field to the game that reduces projectile damage is kind of crazy. And finally, we have reached the end of the vehicle section with this upcoming paragraph, General Equipment Changes. The IFV no longer has the laser designator equipped by default. It now shares a slot with a mines countermeasure and smoke grenades. The mine countermeasures, previously available only to the MBT and APT, are now also available to the IFVs. The mobile command center passive, previously exclusive to the APT, is now also available to the IFVs. The transport helicopter now has the improved armor passive equipped by default. This functions identically to the attack helicopter's version of the same passive, reducing the amount of damage taken from small arms fire. Emergency repair now heals over time instead of healing instantly upon activation. Reduce the activation time of projectile intercept system from 1 second to 0.6 seconds on land vehicles. Wow. So an insane amount of vehicle changes. Vehicle gameplay is going to be completely and utterly different as soon as this update comes out on the 12th, and I am going to be very interested to finally be able to actually be interested enough to put time into vehicle gameplay on Galmud Railway and on other maps. So if you're interested in my thoughts regarding the vehicle gameplay after the update, subscribe to the channel. I'll definitely be making some tank and vehicle videos. Now, moving on to the gadget section of the patch notes. The summary for this section, according to DICE, reads as follows. Gadgets receive further updates. Mines, launchers, and portable mortar, the engineer supply crate, the hardware suppression system, and laser designation tools have all been updated as part of the broader vehicle pass with a focus on making launchers more viable, giving anti-vehicle gadgets clearer roles, and improving clarity and consistency in how support gadgets behave in combat. As far as the patch note changes, they have added a warning indicator for the PTKM 1R acoustic sensor AV mine, say that 10 times fast, when the submunition launches. So basically, when the mine launches, there will be a warning indicator. They have also corrected an issue preventing the supply crate from resupplying soldiers inside of vehicles, and they've also corrected an issue where deploying the tugs would always switch players back to their primary weapon instead of their previously selected weapon. They've also corrected an issue where the incendiary airburst could sometimes fail to detect and damage targets inside of its burning smoke cloud, and some important changes here actually. Player-controlled gadgets, including the portable mortar, the recon drone, laser designator, and the EOD bot, now only begin resupplying once the deployed gadget has already been destroyed. Another slightly questionable change, in my opinion, is the fact that they made acoustic mines and AV mines no longer trigger for light transport or personal transport vehicles. Does this mean you can just drive a fucking Jeep over a mine and it's not gonna blow up anymore? I'm not sure. I'll have to drive over a mine on Galmud to actually test this. Now, there are some Claymore changes coming up, finally, because the Claymore in this game is literally diabolical. They say they have tuned the Claymore detection arc to better match the visible laser beams, and they have updated the Claymore fragmentation base close range damage from 65, and they've nerfed it to 50 damage, and the damage drop-off now starts at the edge of the detection arc. So some very slight Claymore nerfs here, finally, thank God. Another big change they made actually has to do with C4. They have updated the C4 damage, so now they deal 350 damage against tanks, 350 damage against helicopters, and 1000 damage against jets. DICE have also updated the engineer supply crate so it no longer has limited supply charges in standard multiplayer, allowing it to resupply nearby vehicles indefinitely. Infinite vehicle ammo resupply engineer crate. I'm sure that won't be exploited. And getting to the end of the initial gadget changes, they have nerfed the mortar. Guys, round of applause in the comments section. Leave a timestamp with a little clapping hand. Updated the portable mortar shot's dispersion, so it no longer is perfectly accurate at maximum range, with shorter range bombardments now becoming much more accurate than longer range bombardments once fully zeroed. They also updated the acoustic mine, so it deals 480 damage against tanks. And finally, they've updated the RPG damage, so it deals 173 to 460 damage against tanks, 1,035 damage against helicopters, and 1,000 against jets. One thing of note here is the RPG maximum damage listed is 460, and a main battle tank's health is 1,200, meaning you're going to have to 3-shot a tank in its rear end in order to actually kill a tank now. Moving on to some specific changes to the M15 anti-vehicle mine, they are essentially reverting nerfs to this gadget that they made a long time ago. It will now basically just stay on the map forever. They have increased the amount of mines you can place from 6 to 9. I don't understand this change. I think this is really bad for the game. On to some lock-on anti-air weapons now, the Stinger and the Igla respectively. First, the Stinger has seen its base lock-on range reduced from 650 to 550 meters. That's still absolutely insane for a lock-on range, by the way. Its damage against vehicles has been updated to 200 against tanks, 650 against helicopters and jets, respectively, and its maximum missile speed has been reduced from 540 to 480 meters per second. The Igla has seen very similar changes, except its lock-on time has been reduced from 1.2 to 1 second, and its missile acceleration has been increased from 65 to 100 meters per second. Moving on to some changes having to do with the MBT Law and the Javelin now. They have essentially nerfed its damage, but they have increased the missile speed, maximum missile speed, and the missile acceleration. And for the Javelin, it does consistent damage against tanks and every other vehicle. They've reduced its locking time, increased its maximum missile speed, and increased its starting ammunition. Now onto some long overdue nerfs to the laser designator, which was really a massive fucking problem when it came to vehicle gameplay. They have changed the effect duration, and they have reduced it from 20 to 9 seconds for both soldier and vehicle designators. The laser designator no longer reduces lock-on time for anti-air missiles, and the gadget now provides a consistent 20% increase to lock-on range across all locking weapons. This applies to vehicle-mounted laser designators. In my opinion, they still have to take a very close look at lock-on ranges. They mentioned the Stingers is, I believe, 550 meters now, increased by 20% from a laser designator. Most Battlefield 6 maps don't have a playable area that is larger than like 700 meters. So the fact that it can still basically lock onto you from across the entire map end to end, that's a problem. And last, but certainly not least, in the gadget section, they have addressed the hardware suppression system. They tweaked targeting behavior so it can no longer target enemy gadgets through walls at long range, though limited wall penetration is still possible at closer distances. They updated interception behavior so it no longer detects or detonates grenades and the M320A1 projectiles, but it will still target launcher projectiles. And they updated maximum range back to its original value. Finally, moving on to the weapon section, the summary for this is weapons get a balance and usability pass. Automatic weapon recoil has been adjusted to better define weapon strengths at range. Shotguns receive new attachment options. The magnifier is now available as a shared optic accessory, and multiple reload, animation, reticle, and attachment issues have been resolved to improve handling and readability as we continue to improve gunplay. In terms of these specific weapon patch notes, there's just a bunch of weird corrections and bug fixes. They did add shotgun speed loaders as a magazine attachment to the M870A1 and the M1014, and they additionally increased recoil for high DPS automatic weapons, reducing their long and mid-range capabilities and giving them outsized opportunity costs and making other weapons more attractive to use. One of the biggest changes in this entire patch note comes at roughly the 32-minute mark, guys. They have increased recoil for all automatic weapons to compensate for the recoil compensation bug fixes that came out in a previous game update. This is essentially step one in remedying the problems with Battlefield 6's gunplay. Weapons have too little recoil, they're too accurate, their muzzle velocities are too fast. I've talked about this ad nauseum in multiple videos, and I'm so happy to see DICE actually take the first step in making Battlefield 6's gunplay and overall gameplay significantly better. Moving on to the maps and mode section, a long overdue change is in this section that may have been glossed over by many people. They have corrected an issue on Manhattan Bridge where players were able to access rooftops meant to be inaccessible. Hallelujah! I mean, I can hear the angels serenading me from above. Fucking finally, DICE. It only took you 7 months. Now, moving on to one of the final sections of this video. This has to do with UI, audio, AI, all that sort of stuff. The summary for this is broader updates to all of the aforementioned sections. Seasonal statistics have been added to the player profile. Aircraft now receive clearer threat indicators. AI support in Strike Point has been improved. New upscaling options have been added, and Portal continues to expand with new support tools and functionality updates. In the UI and HUD section, they go on this massive spiel about how they're adding ranked to the game in REDSEC, and they're going to be adding seasonal statistics because they value it as something that players would like to see. So that's cool. You can see core metrics based on season like KD assist, revives, wins, time played, all the good stuff. The big stuff in this section, you have to kind of dig out of it. It's really hidden in here. So they have added a new threat indicator for jets and helicopters that appears when a nearby enemy jet has your vehicle in its sights, helping pilots identify threats and take evasive action more quickly. And on top of that, they have added another new threat indicator that highlights incoming aim-guided missiles, improving pilots' ability to spot and react to them. On top of that, they've also added an air vehicle below radar indicator above the minimap, and they've added input buffering to reduce accidental ping cancellations. In terms of the audio changes, guys, they're attempting to give us hope again that they're going to fix footstep audio in the upcoming season. So hold your breath, because the first thing they state is added behavior that allows close enemy footsteps to sidechain duck the first-person player weapon slightly based on direction of the enemy. Translating that from developer jargon to easily understandable terms, basically, I think what this means is enemy footsteps in close proximity will take higher priority and therefore be a higher volume than your weapon while you're shooting it. So they're trying to make sure your weapon audio doesn't get in the way of you hearing a sound cue. Speaking of sound cue, this is another one of the weirdest changes in this update. They have, for some reason, felt the need to increase the volume and audibility of the sliding sound. Now, this is weird because the sound of a soldier performing a slide in Battlefield 6 is literally as loud as a fucking tank shooting next to you. It's one of the most distinct and identifiable sounds in the entire game. So I don't really understand why they would ever feel the need to make it even more identifiable, other than the fact that they are basically indirectly nerfing the slide by making sure it's the loudest sound in the area whenever you do it. But with that being said, it already kind of was the loudest sound, so I don't know. And finally, they have corrected edge cases where footstep sounds could be more obstructed than intended when both players were in outdoor spaces with overhead cover. Have you ever played on Manhattan Bridge D-Flag? Have you ever died to somebody you didn't hear on that flag? This is probably why, and this patch note is aiming to improve that experience by just attempting to make footstep audio actually play, be way more consistent, be audible, all that sort of stuff. Alright, so that wraps up the multiplayer section of this video. Now, we're gonna get into REDSEC. Do I have enough background footage for this video? Probably fucking not. The big news regarding REDSEC is the fact that they are adding a ranked mode to Battle Royale quads. As of recording this video, I cannot find anything relating to them adding a solo mode at the start of Season 3. I'm pretty sure they're going to be adding it in Season 3, but maybe just later down the line. Some of the biggest REDSEC changes include them reducing damage taken from primary weapons while in the downed state by 20%, increasing the number of bullets required to finish a downed soldier by approximately 2 to 3. This is absolutely massive for Battle Royale gameplay, especially for the upcoming $1 million Elite Series tournament. This is going to make finishing kills way more difficult. On top of that, they made sure that eliminated players can no longer place pings on the minimap, feeding their entire team free information. Another massive thing they did are to some of the transport vehicles in REDSEC, so they have essentially nerfed the transport helicopter miniguns and any 50 cal you find on the map, whether it be on a transport vehicle or on a stationary MG. They also nerfed the recon drone cooldown from 2 minutes, and they made it all the way up to 4 minutes. This is so welcome. The meta in REDSEC was literally just rotating recon drones off cooldown, so you had 100% awareness at all times. On top of all of this, they made a slew of changes to gadgets, strike packages, the entire Battle Royale map having to do with loot, loot location, loot detection, and even as far as rebalancing something to do with Battle Royale progression, gained XP, mission completion, distance traveled, and they have nerfed the XP needed to level up the Battle Pass in duos from 1700 to 1500 for each level. Ladies and gentlemen, if you watched to this point in the video, let me just say, you're probably incredibly attractive in real life. I mean, I know, I can see you smiling right now. You're going, oh, Ender, stop. Oh, stop. No, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching the content. 38 fucking minute patch note video. That's more like it, Dice, okay? More stuff like this. If you enjoyed the video, hit the sub button, hit the like button, check out the second channel. I've been having a riot making videos over on that channel. And if you've never come by a stream, all my clips I get on stream, guys. So if you like the gameplay in the background, you can see the clips happen live, twitch.tv/enders, and I stream on this YouTube channel every single day. Turn on notifications, follow all the channels. All links will be in the description. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.